The Intergalactic Betting Federation's financial systems crashed spectacularly as humans, once again, refused to die when they should have. Patrick Simpson, a 35-year-old former Navy SEAL, stepped onto the gleaming deck of Nexus 7, Earth's first official representative to the stars. The space station hummed with alien activity, a testament to the complex web of interstellar relations humanity had unwittingly entangled itself in. Horus, a high-ranking Sakari official, approached Patrick. The avian alien's feathers rustled with barely contained agitation. "Human," Horus addressed him, voice dripping with disdain. "Your presence here is by unfortunate." Patrick stood his ground, eyeing the alien's elaborate plumage and the intricate insignia denoting his status within the Sakari's complex social hierarchy. "I'm here on behalf of Earth," he stated firmly. "We received your invitation." Horus's beak clicked in what Patrick assumed was irritation. "Invitation? No, human. This is a summons. Your species has caused unprecedented chaos in our betting systems. The IBF demands reparations." Patrick's mind reeled. "Betting systems, reparations, what are you talking about?" The Sakari official's eyes narrowed. "Your kind consistently defies our most advanced probability calculations. Humans survive scenarios with odds so astronomical, it's crashed our entire economic infrastructure. Multiple civilizations are on the brink of collapse." As Horus spoke, holographic displays flickered to life around them, showcasing graphs and figures that painted a grim picture of financial ruin. Patrick's eyes widened as he processed the information. Humanity had become the subject of countless high-stakes wagers across the galaxy, all without their knowledge or consent. "This is absurd," Patrick countered. "Earth won't pay reparations for something we had no part in." Horus's feathers bristled. "Then you leave us no choice. Earth will face forced isolation from the galactic community. You have 24 hours to reconsider." As the Sakari official stormed off, Patrick's mind raced. He needed answers, and fast. Slipping away from the main concourse, he found an access terminal and put his covert ops training to use. Within minutes, he was deep in the station's databanks. What he uncovered chilled him to the bone. Thousands of life-threatening scenarios, meticulously engineered by various alien races, all designed to test human limits. Simulated natural disasters, complex military situations, even cosmic anomalies, all crafted to gather data on human survival rates. But there was more. As Patrick dug deeper, he found evidence of manipulation. Certain alien factions, including prominent Sakari officials, had been altering the tests, possibly to influence betting outcomes. Horus's name appeared multiple times in connection with suspicious activities. Armed with this information, Patrick confronted the Sakari official. "I know about the rigged tests," he declared, backing Horus into a corner. "Drop the demands against Earth or I'll expose everything." Horus's eyes blazed with fury. "You understand nothing, human. This goes beyond mere betting. There are forces at work determined to keep your kind contained. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed the corridor in an eerie red glow. "Life support systems failing," an automated voice announced. "All personnel proceed to emergency stations." As chaos erupted around them, Patrick locked eyes with Horus. This was no coincidence. It was another test, another attempt to probe humanity's limits, but this time with real consequences for everyone on board. Patrick's jaw set with determination. Once again, humanity would be forced to defy the odds, but this time, he'd make sure the galaxy understood exactly why they kept beating them. The station shuddered as another wave of system failures cascaded through its infrastructure. Patrick's mind raced, years of training kicking in as he assessed the situation. The chaotic corridors filled with panicked aliens, their various appendages flailing in distress. "We need to get to the central control room," Patrick said, his voice cutting through the cacophony of alarms. Horus, momentarily stunned by the sudden crisis, nodded reluctantly. They navigated through the mayhem, dodging malfunctioning equipment and confused station personnel. Patrick's eyes darted from one failing system to another, piecing together the extent of the damage. Upon reaching the control room's entrance, they found it sealed tight. A complex alien locking mechanism glowed ominously, denying them access. Patrick examined the lock, his brow furrowing in concentration. "I can bypass this," he muttered, more to himself than to Horus. The Sakari official watched with a mixture of skepticism and grudging admiration as Patrick's fingers danced over the alien technology. Within minutes, the door hissed open. Inside, holographic displays flickered erratically, painting the room in a disorienting light show. Patrick strode to the central console, his hands hovering over the alien interface. "What are you doing, human?" Horus demanded, his feathers dripping with agitation. Patrick didn't look up as he responded, "Saving all our lives if you'll let me concentrate." As he worked, Patrick's eyes narrowed. The systems hadn't simply failed, they'd been sabotaged. A hidden subroutine pulsed malevolently in the station's computer core, its coding oddly familiar. "This is connected to the betting manipulation," Patrick said, his voice tight with tension. "Someone engineered this crisis." Before Horus could respond, the door slid open again. A towering figure entered, flanked by a team of armed guards. The newcomer's scaled skin gleamed in the erratic light, his reptilian eyes scanning the room with military precision. "I am Commander Zexitara, head of station security," the drone-in warrior announced, his voice a low rumble. "Explain your presence in this restricted area." Patrick turned, his hand still working on the console. "I'm Patrick Simpson, Earth's representative. I'm trying to restore life support before we all suffocate." Zextara's eyes narrowed, assessing the human's words and actions. After a tense moment, he barked an order to his team. "Assist him, now." The guards moved swiftly, taking up positions around the room. One, clearly versed in the station's systems, joined Patrick at the console. As they worked, Patrick explained his discoveries, the betting manipulation, the engineered tests, and now this sabotage. Zextara listened intently, his expression growing darker with each revelation. "This corruption dishonors us all," the drone-in commander growled. "You have my support, human. We will uncover the truth." With the combined efforts of Patrick, Zextara's team, and even a begrudging Horus, they managed to stabilize the station's critical systems. The alarms fell silent, replaced by the hum of restored equipment. Patrick wiped sweat from his brow, exhaustion setting in as the adrenaline ebbed, but he knew their work was far from finished. "Commander," he said, turning to Zextara, "we need to access the IBF's secure databases. That's where we'll find concrete proof of this conspiracy." Zextara nodded grimly. "It won't be easy. Those systems are more heavily guarded than the station itself." As they began to formulate a plan, a commotion outside the control room caught their attention. Through the transparent walls, they saw groups of aliens moving with purpose, some carrying weapons. "It seems our actions haven't gone unnoticed," Horus said, his voice tinged with worry. Patrick's suspicions were confirmed as he intercepted a coded transmission on the station's communication network. Horus and his allies were mobilizing their resources, activating sleeper agents throughout Nexus 7. "They're coming for us," Patrick announced, his voice grim, "and they'll destroy any evidence we've collected." Zextara's team took up defensive positions around the control room. The drone-in commander himself stood beside Patrick, his imposing presence a reassurance. "We are warriors of honor," Zextara declared. "We will not let these corrupt officials succeed." Patrick nodded, his mind already racing ahead to their next move. They needed to secure the evidence, expose the conspiracy, and somehow survive the impending attack. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire galactic community, hung in the balance. As the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the corridor, Patrick met Zextara's eyes. A silent understanding passed between them. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The control room's doors began to shake as the first blows struck from outside. Patrick turned back to the console, his fingers flying over the alien interface. If they could just hold out long enough to access those secure databases. A thunderous crash reverberated through the room as the doors began to buckle. Patrick's heart raced, but his hands remained steady. Earth was counting on him. The entire galaxy was counting on him, and he wasn't about to let them down. The control room's doors gave way with a deafening crash, sending shards of metal flying across the room. Patrick's fingers danced across the alien interface, desperately trying to access the secure databases. Zextara stood beside him, his massive form a living shield against the incoming assault. "Time to go, human," Zextara growled, his scaled hand gripping Patrick's shoulder. "We can't hold this position." Patrick nodded, his mind racing. "The maintenance tunnels," he said, eyes scanning the room's schematics on a nearby display. "We can use them to reach the IBF's data center." As Horus's forces poured into the control room, Patrick and Zextara slipped through a hidden access panel. The narrow tunnel stretched before them, bathed in dim emergency lighting. They moved swiftly, the sounds of pursuit fading behind them. "Your species continues to surprise me," Zextara rumbled as they navigated the labyrinthine passages. "I've never seen anyone hack alien systems so efficiently." Patrick managed a grim smile. "That's kind of our thing, adapting, surviving, beating the odds." They emerged from the tunnels into a deserted corridor, only to be met by a group of Horus's agents. Patrick reacted instantly, his SEAL training kicking in. He ducked under a swing from a tentacled alien, using its momentum to throw it into its comrades. Zextara roared, his massive fists sending opponents flying. The skirmish ended quickly, leaving Patrick and Zextara standing amidst a pile of groaning aliens. "We need to keep moving," Patrick panted, wiping a trickle of blood from his lip. They pressed on, encountering pockets of resistance along the way. Each confrontation was brief but intense, a blur of fists, claws, and improvised weapons. Patrick found himself relying on skills honed through years of training and combat experience, his body moving almost on autopilot. Finally, they reached the entrance to the IBF's secure data center. A massive door stood before them, covered in pulsing alien glyphs. Patrick approached the security panel, his eyes narrowing as he studied the unfamiliar technology. "Can you bypass it?" Zextara asked, keeping watch for any approaching threats. Patrick nodded, his fingers already probing the alien circuitry. "Give me a few minutes. The system is more complex than anything I've seen before." As Patrick worked, Zextara's communicator crackled to life. "Commander," a voice hissed, "Horus has mobilized all available forces. They're sweeping the station sector by sector." "Understood," Zextara replied. "Hold your positions and protect the civilians. We'll contact you once we've secured the evidence." With a soft hiss, the data center's door slid open. Patrick and Zextara stepped inside, their eyes widening at the sight before them. Holographic displays filled the air, each one showing streams of data and complex algorithms. At the center of the room stood a pulsing crystalline structure, its facets reflecting the swirling information around it. "The IBF's main database," Patrick breathed, approaching the crystal. He placed his hand on its surface, feeling a slight vibration beneath his palm. "Everything we need is in here." As Patrick began to access the database, the evidence of the IBF's corruption unfolded before them. Betting records, manipulated test scenarios, and detailed plans for increasingly dangerous human survival situations filled the displays. The scale of the conspiracy was staggering. "They've been pushing us to our absolute limits," Patrick muttered, his voice tight with anger. "Each test more deadly than the last." Zextara's eyes narrowed as he examined the data. "This goes beyond mere gambling. They're studying your species, looking for weaknesses to exploit." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. A computerized voice echoed through the corridors. "Alert, security breach detected. Initiating station-wide lockdown." Patrick's head snapped up. "Horus knows we're here. We need to get this information out now." With practiced efficiency, Patrick accessed the station's communication systems. He quickly composed a message, attaching the damning evidence they'd uncovered. "To all Earth and alien civilizations," He began, his voice steady despite the urgency of the situation. "This is Patrick Simpson, Earth's representative on Nexus 7. I'm transmitting proof of a vast conspiracy orchestrated by the Intergalactic Betting Federation." As the message went out, the data center's doors sealed shut with a resounding thud. They were trapped, but the truth was now spreading across the galaxy. Zexitara's communicator crackled again. "Commander," a panicked voice reported, "Horus has activated some kind of hidden weapon system. The station is changing." Patrick and Zexitara exchanged grim looks. Their mission wasn't over yet. They had exposed the truth, but now they faced an even greater challenge, surviving long enough to ensure that truth wasn't buried along with them. The walls of the data center began to shift, panels sliding away to reveal automated defense turrets. Patrick's mind raced, assessing their options. They needed to escape, to reach a more defensible position. But more than that, they needed to stop Horus and prevent him from destroying the evidence they had worked so hard to uncover. "We need to get to the central core," Patrick said, his eyes scanning the room for potential escape routes. "If Horus has control of the station systems, that's where we'll be able to override him." Zexitara nodded, his scaled hands clenching into fists. "Agreed, but first we must break out of this trap." As if in response to his words, the defense turrets powered up, their barrels glowing with energy. Patrick and Zexitara dove for cover as the first volley of shots filled the air with searing light. Using the crystalline database structure as shelter, Patrick accessed a nearby terminal. His fingers flew over the alien interface, bypassing security protocols and tapping into the station's maintenance systems. "I can override the door controls," Patrick shouted over the sound of energy blasts, "but we'll only have a few seconds before the system resets." Zexitara's eyes gleamed with perseverance. "That's all we need." With a final command, Patrick triggered the override. The data center's doors slid open, and they burst into the corridor beyond. The station's transformation was in full effect, with walls shifting and new obstacles appearing at every turn. They fought their way through waves of security drones and armed agents, Patrick's quick thinking complementing Zexitara's raw combat prowess. They used the station's changing layout to their advantage, ducking into newly formed alcoves and using shifting panels as impromptu shields. As they battled through the chaos, Patrick noticed something remarkable. The human staff members they encountered were displaying extraordinary resilience and adaptability. They moved with uncanny grace through the shifting corridors, reacting to threats with almost superhuman speed. "It's like they've been training for this their whole lives," Patrick muttered as they paused to catch their breath. Zexitara nodded, his reptilian eyes narrowing. "Perhaps they have, in a way. Your species has been subjected to countless survival scenarios. It seems to have had an unexpected effect." Their path led them to a communication hub, where they encountered an unexpected ally. Dr. Lyra, an Eltaran scientist, emerged from behind a barricade of overturned furniture. Her large, luminous eyes widened at the sight of them. "You're the human representative," she said, her melodic voice tinged with excitement. "I've been studying your species' performance in extreme situations. You must come with me. I have information that could change everything." With Dr. Lyra's help, Patrick established a secure connection to Earth's military command. As he briefed them on the situation, Zexitara and Dr. Lyra kept watch, fending off sporadic attacks from Horus's forces. "A rescue team is on its way," Patrick announced as he finished the transmission, "but we're not out of this yet." As if to emphasize his point, a violent tremor shook the station. Warning klaxons blared, and a computerized voice announced, "Warning, self-destruct sequence initiated. All personnel evacuate immediately." Dr. Lyra's face paled. "Horus must be desperate. He's going to destroy the entire station to cover his tracks." Patrick's face tight with certainty. "Not if we can help it. We need to split up. I'll head to the central core to disable the self-destruct mechanism. Zexitara, can you organize an evacuation of the civilians?" The Dronin commander nodded. "Consider it done." "Dr. Lyra," Patrick continued. "We need you to secure all the data you've collected on human adaptability. It could be crucial in understanding what's been done to us." As they prepared to part ways, another violent tremor rocked the station. Patrick steadied himself against a wall, his mind already racing ahead to the challenge that awaited him. He knew that somewhere in the depths of Nexus 7, Horus was waiting. Their final confrontation was inevitable. With a last nod to his allies, Patrick set off towards the central core. The corridors ahead were a gauntlet of collapsing structures and malfunctioning systems. But with each obstacle he overcame, with each impossible situation he survived, Patrick felt a growing sense of clarity. Humans had been pushed to their limits, forced to adapt and overcome in ways they never thought possible. Now it was time to show the galaxy exactly what they were capable of. As Patrick approached the entrance to the central core, he could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Beyond that door lay not just Horus, but the culmination of everything humanity had endured. It was time to face the architect of their trials and prove, once and for all, that humans were more than just subjects in some cosmic experiment. The door to the central core slid open, revealing a vast chamber dominated by pulsing energy conduits and swirling holographic displays. And there, at the heart of it all, stood Horus. The Sakari official's feathers were ruffled, his eyes blazing with a mixture of fury and desperation. "So," Horus said, his voice echoing in the cavernous space, "the human survives yet again. How fitting that it should end like this." Patrick stepped forward, his body tense and ready for action. The fate of Nexus 7, the evidence against the IBF, and potentially the future of human-alien relations now hung in the balance. As he faced his adversary, Patrick knew that this final confrontation would test every skill, every adaptation, every ounce of human resilience he possessed. The central core hummed with energy, the self-destruct sequence counting down around them. In this moment, suspended between survival and annihilation, Patrick prepared to show Horus and the entire galaxy exactly why humans always beat the odds. Patrick's muscles tensed as he faced Horus in the pulsing heart of Nexus 7's central core. The Sakari official's feathers bristled, his eyes narrowed with malice. "You've meddled in affairs beyond your comprehension, human." Horus spat, his hand hovering near a concealed pocket. Patrick's SEAL training kicked in, his senses hyper-aware of every twitch and movement. He circled slowly, keeping Horus in his sights while scanning for potential weapons or escape routes. "It's over, Horus," Patrick said, his voice steady. "The truth is out. Stand down and we can end this peacefully." Horus's response came in the form of a lightning-fast draw, a sleek alien weapon materializing in his grasp. Patrick was already moving, his body reacting before his mind could process the threat. He ducked and rolled as a searing bolt of energy scorched the air where he'd been standing. The fight erupted into a deadly dance of attack and counterattack. Patrick's combat experience gave him an edge, allowing him to anticipate Horus's moves and stay one step ahead. He weaved through the maze of energy conduits and control panels, using the environment to his advantage. Horus, growing desperate, fired wildly. His shots went wide, striking critical systems and sending cascades of sparks raining down. Warning klaxons blared as the damage spread through the station's network. Patrick closed the distance, disarming Horus with a precise strike. The alien weapon clattered to the floor, sliding out of reach. Horus snarled, activating a personal energy shield that hummed to life around him. "You think you've won?" Horus sneered, his shield deflecting Patrick's attempted grab. "I'll see this station destroyed before I let you leave with that evidence." The Sakari official lunged for a nearby control panel, his fingers flying over the alien interface. Patrick's eyes widened as he realized Horus's intent. He dove forward, crashing into the energy shield with all his might. The impact sent them both tumbling, but not before Horus managed to input a final command. A computerized voice echoed through the chamber. "Self-destruct sequence activated. Station-wide evacuation protocols engaged." Patrick scrambled to his feet, his mind racing. He had to stop the self-destruct, but Horus was still a threat. The Sakari official charged, his shield flickering as it absorbed the impact of their collision. Using every ounce of his training and newly honed adaptability, Patrick outmaneuvered his opponent. He feinted left, then struck from the right, exploiting a momentary weakness in the shield. His fist connected with Horus's jaw, sending the alien reeling. With Horus momentarily stunned, Patrick sprinted to the main control interface. His fingers flew over the alien technology, his mind processing the unfamiliar symbols at an astonishing speed. He found the self-destruct controls and began the process of disarming them, acutely aware of Horus recovering behind him. Just as Patrick entered the final override command, Horus slammed into him from behind. They grappled fiercely, crashing into delicate equipment and sending more systems into chaos. But it was too late for Horus. The self-destruct sequence had been aborted. Patrick broke free from Horus's grasp and delivered a decisive blow, finally breaking through the weakened energy shield. The Sakari official crumpled to the floor, unconscious. Breathing heavily, Patrick surveyed the damage. The central core was a mess of sparking wires and malfunctioning displays. The station groaned around him, the accumulation of damage taking its toll on Nexus 7's structural integrity. His communicator crackled to life. "Patrick, this is Xtara. The evacuation is underway. We've secured most of the civilians in escape pods. What's your status?" "Horus is down and I've stopped the self-destruct," Patrick replied, restraining the unconscious alien with a length of torn cabling. "But the station's taken heavy damage. We need to get everyone off as soon as possible." "Understood. Dr. Lyra has secured the data and is transmitting it to multiple off-station locations. We'll rendezvous at the command center." Patrick hefted Horus over his shoulder and made his way out of the central core. The corridors were in chaos, with panicked staff members rushing towards evacuation points. He guided those he encountered, his calm demeanor a steadying influence in the crisis. As he approached the command center, Patrick heard the distinctive sound of energy weapons. He rounded a corner to find Xtara engaged in combat with a group of Horus's loyalists. The Dronin commander's massive fists sent opponents flying, but he was outnumbered. Patrick set Horus down and joined the fray. Together, they made short work of the remaining attackers. Xtara nodded in thanks, his scales glistening with exertion. "The last of the civilians are away," Xtara reported as they continued to the command center. "But these loyalists are making things difficult. They seem to think they can still salvage Horus's plan." They entered the command center to find Dr. Lyra hunched over a console, her fingers a blur of motion. She looked up as they entered, her large eyes filled with a mixture of excitement and concern. "I've managed to secure all the data on human adaptability," she said. "It's fascinating, truly. The way your species responds to extreme situations. It's unlike anything we've seen before." Before Patrick could respond, a new voice cut through the room. "Nexus 7, this is Captain Sarah Walker of the Earth Rescue Team. We've docked and are beginning to secure key areas. What's your situation?" Patrick moved to the main communication panel. "Captain Walker, this is Patrick Simpson. We've neutralized the main threat, but the station is heavily damaged. We need to complete the evacuation as quickly as possible." "Understood," Walker replied. "My team is moving through the station now. We'll assist with any remaining evacuees and secure any sensitive areas." As if on cue, a squad of human soldiers entered the command center. Patrick was struck by their fluid movements and quick adaptation to the alien environment. They fanned out, securing the room with practiced efficiency. Captain Walker stepped forward, her eyes quickly assessing the situation. "Looks like you've been through quite an ordeal," she said, glancing at the still unconscious Horus. "Let's get you all out of here and sort through this mess somewhere more stable." As they prepared to leave the command center, a proximity alert blared. Dr. Lyra rushed to a sensor display, her eyes widening. "We've got multiple ships approaching. It looks like representatives from various galactic civilizations. They must have responded to the distress calls." Patrick exchanged glances with Xtara and Captain Walker. The situation had just become far more complex. As the alien ships drew near, Patrick knew that the next few hours would be critical in shaping the future of human-alien relations. The station shuddered, a stark reminder of the damage it had sustained. Time was running out. They needed to present their evidence, explain the situation, and complete the evacuation before Nexus 7 fell apart around them. With a deep breath, Patrick steeled himself for the challenges ahead. The fate of humanity's place in the galaxy now rested on what would happen next. In their hands, as the gravity of the situation settled over them, the command center erupted into a flurry of activity. We need to establish a secure communication channel with Earth immediately, Captain Walker said, her voice cutting through the chaos. She turned to Patrick. Your first-hand knowledge of what's happened here is crucial. We need to brief our superiors on the full scope of the situation. Patrick nodded, moving swiftly to assist in setting up the encrypted link. As they worked, Dr. Lyra's console beeped urgently. The Eltaran scientist's eyes widened as she scanned the incoming data. We have a problem, she announced, her voice tense. I'm receiving reports of a massive mobilization effort. It's the Purity Concordat. The name sent a chill through the room. Patrick had heard whispers of the xenophobic faction during his time on Nexus 7, but he'd never imagined they'd pose such an immediate threat. Commander Zextara's scales rippled with concern. If the Purity Concordat is on the move, we need to act fast. They've been waiting for an opportunity like this, a moment of galactic instability to push their agenda. Captain Walker's face hardened. Agreed. We need to form a crisis response team now. She looked around the room, her gaze settling on Patrick, Zextara, and Dr. Lyra. The four of us will coordinate our efforts from here. This human diplomatic outpost will serve as our command center. As they organized their makeshift headquarters, reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Purity Concordat was gathering forces at key strategic locations, their movements suggesting a coordinated plan of attack. Patrick leaned over a holographic star map, his eyes narrowing as he analyzed the data. They're targeting a human colony in the Outer Rim, he said, pointing to a blinking red indicator. It's isolated, vulnerable. They're testing us. Captain Walker nodded grimly. It's a smart move. They want to see how we'll respond, how well we can protect our own. The communication channel with Earth crackled to life, and Patrick found himself facing a panel of stern-faced military and political leaders. He recounted the events on Nexus 7, laying out the evidence of the IBF's corruption and the looming threat of the Purity Concordat. The response was swift. Earth's military command authorized the immediate deployment of their most advanced spacecraft, the UES Defiant, to defend the targeted colony. Captain Walker received her new orders with a mix of purpose and apprehension. You'll take command of the Defiant, the ranking admiral told her. And Simpson, we want you on board as well. Your experience with alien species in this situation makes you invaluable as a liaison. As preparations for the Defiant's deployment began, Dr. Lyra called for their attention. Her large eyes were bright with excitement, a stark contrast to the tension permeating the room. I've made a breakthrough in my research on human adaptability, she announced. The trait that allows for rapid evolution in response to extreme situations, I believe it can be temporarily induced in other species. The implications of her discovery hung in the air. Patrick exchanged glances with Zextara and Captain Walker, recognizing both the potential and the ethical quandaries it presented. This could give us an edge, Zextara said cautiously. But we must be careful. Such an advantage could easily be seen as a threat by other species. Captain Walker nodded. We'll need to consider this carefully. For now, let's focus on our immediate defense strategy. As they continued their preparations, Commander Zextara excused himself to make a series of encrypted calls. When he returned, his massive frame seemed to fill the room with renewed purpose. I've reached out to my contacts, he announced. The drone in high command has pledged their support, as have the Eltarans and several other species. We're forming a coalition to stand against the Purity Concordat. Patrick felt a surge of hope at the news. This is unprecedented, he said. We need to build on this momentum. An idea began to form in his mind. What if we created a new intergalactic organization, something to replace the IBF, but with real safeguards against corruption, an entity focused on cooperation and mutual defense. The proposal was met with cautious optimism. As they discussed the potential structure and goals of this new alliance, alarms blared throughout the station. The Purity Concordat had launched their first major offensive. Captain Walker sprang into action. "We need to move. The Defiant is prepped and ready for departure." As they made their way to the docking bay, Patrick and Dr. Lyra hurriedly briefed the crew on the unique challenges they might face. "Be prepared for anything," Patrick warned. "The Purity Concordat may have engineered scenarios designed to test human limits, similar to what the IBF did." The crew listened intently, their faces a mix of perseverance and apprehension. As they boarded the Defiant, Patrick couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu. Once again, he was heading into the unknown, the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. The sleek ship hummed to life around them, its advanced systems responding to the crew's commands with uncanny precision. As they prepared for departure, a final transmission came through from Commander Zexatara. "Be cautious," the dronin warned. "We've uncovered evidence that the Purity Concordat has infiltrated several key positions in various alien governments. Trust will be at a premium." With this sobering news, the Defiant launched, streaking away from the station and towards the embattled human colony. As they entered faster-than-light travel, Patrick stared out at the blur of stars, his mind racing with the challenges that lay ahead. The Purity Concordat's coordinated strikes had revealed the true scale of the threat. Reports flooded in of attacks not just on the human colony, but on key allied worlds as well. The newly formed alliance was being tested on multiple fronts, its willpower strained to the breaking point. As the Defiant approached its destination, tension mounted on the bridge. Captain Walker stood at the helm, her posture rigid as she issued commands. Patrick monitored the incoming data, his enhanced senses processing the information at an astonishing rate. The scene that greeted them as they dropped out of FTL was one of chaos. The human colony, a collection of gleaming domes on a rust-colored planet, was under heavy assault. Purity Concordat ships swarmed around it, their weapons leaving scorch marks on the protective shields. "Battle stations." Captain Walker's voice rang out. "Prepare to engage the enemy. Simpson, coordinate with our allied ships. Let's show these xenophobes what happens when they mess with humanity and its friends." As the Defiant plunged into the fray, Patrick couldn't shake the feeling that this battle would be a turning point. Not just for the colony, but for humanity's place in the galaxy and the future of interspecies cooperation. With unwavering purpose, he focused on the task at hand, ready to face whatever challenges the Purity Concordat might throw their way. The Defiant shuddered as it absorbed the first volley of enemy fire, its advanced shields flickering but holding strong. "Evasive maneuvers," Captain Walker barked. "Target the lead ships and fire at will." Patrick's fingers flew over the tactical display, coordinating the Defiant's attacks with those of their allied vessels. The space around the colony erupted in a dazzling light show of weapons fire and explosions. As the battle raged, Patrick noticed something odd about the enemy's tactics. Their formation shifted in ways that seemed eerily familiar, almost as if they were anticipating human strategies. "Captain," he called out, "I think the Concordat has insider knowledge of our tactics. Their movements are too precise, too tailored to our strengths." Walker's eyes narrowed. "You think we have a leak?" Patrick nodded grimly. "It's possible. We should operate under that assumption." "Agreed. Initiate communications blackout authorization Walker Alpha 79. All orders to be relayed through secure channels only." As the crew scrambled to implement the new protocol, Patrick turned his attention back to the colony's defenses. The enhanced systems, bolstered by Dr. Lyra's research on human adaptability, were holding their own against the initial waves of attackers. Colonial fighters darted between larger ships, their pilots demonstrating incredible reflexes and decision-making skills. But something was off. Patrick watched as a squadron of human fighters suddenly lost formation, their movements becoming erratic. He zoomed in on the area, his enhanced senses picking up subtle distortions in space. "Captain, we have a problem," he reported. "The Concordat is deploying some kind of field that's affecting our pilots. It's suppressing their adaptability." Walker cursed under her breath. "Can we counter it?" Patrick's mind raced, analyzing the data streaming in from the affected areas. "Not immediately, but I have an idea. We need our forces to operate in pairs. One to engage, one to monitor for field activations. It's not perfect, but it should help mitigate the effects." As they implemented the new strategy, reports flooded in from across the battlefield. The Purity Concordat's adaptability suppression fields were causing havoc, leading to heavy casualties among the colonial defenders. Patrick gritted his teeth, feeling the weight of each loss. He knew they needed a game changer, and fast. As if in answer to his thoughts, a new alert flashed across his console. Hundreds of small, fast-moving objects were converging on their position from multiple vectors. "Captain, we have incoming," he called out, "but they're not Concordat signatures, they're ours." Walker's eyes widened in recognition. "The chameleons," she breathed. "Earth must have authorized their deployment." Patrick watched in awe as the swarm of AI-controlled drones swept into the battle. Their movements were fluid, unpredictable, mimicking human adaptability with uncanny precision. The tide of battle began to shift as the chameleons tore through the Concordat's formations. But the enemy was quick to respond. Within minutes, they had launched their own swarms of combat drones. The space above the colony transformed into a seething mass of dueling AIs, their battles playing out in complex, ever-changing patterns. "We need to press our advantage," Patrick said, studying the tactical display. "If we can capture one of those suppression devices, Dr. Lyra might be able to develop a countermeasure." Walker nodded. "Take a team and get it done. We'll provide cover from up here." Patrick assembled a strike team and boarded a shuttle, his mind already racing with potential strategies. As they approached the planet's surface, he briefed his team on the plan. "Remember, we're dealing with technology specifically designed to counter our greatest strength," he warned. "Stay alert, stick to your training, and watch each other's backs." They touched down near a Concordat position where one of the suppression devices had been detected. The team moved swiftly through the colony's outskirts, using the chaos of the battle as cover. As they neared their target, Patrick felt a sudden heaviness in his limbs. His thoughts became sluggish, his reactions delayed. They had entered a suppression field. "Masks on," he ordered, his voice sounding distant to his own ears. The team donned their specially designed helmets, which provided a measure of protection against the field's effects. They engaged the Concordat forces guarding the device in a fierce firefight. Without their usual enhanced abilities, the human team had to rely on pure skill and dedication. Inch by inch, they fought their way forward. Patrick spotted an opening and took it, sprinting toward the device. Enemy fire whizzed past him as he reached the controls, his fingers working furiously to disengage its security measures. With a final burst of effort, he wrenched the device free. "Fall back," he shouted, clutching their prize. As they retreated to their shuttle, Patrick felt his abilities slowly returning. He tapped his communicator. "Defiant, this is Simpson. We have the package. Transmitting schematics to Dr. Lyra now." Back on the bridge, Captain Walker received troubling news. "Simpson, we're detecting a massive Concordat fleet approaching. Long-range scans suggest it's significantly larger than the current attack force." Patrick's mind raced, processing the implications. They're committing everything to this battle. Whatever happens here could decide the entire war. As he said those words, another transmission came through, this time from Commander Zextara on the space station. The Dronin's voice was urgent. "We've uncovered a traitor, a high-ranking Terran official. Under interrogation, they revealed the existence of a Concordat superweapon, a planet destroyer being assembled in a hidden shipyard." The weight of this information settled heavily on Patrick's shoulders. He realized with a sinking feeling that the attack on the colony, as devastating as it was, might be nothing more than a diversion. We need to redirect forces to find and destroy that shipyard," he told Walker as soon as he was back on the bridge. "But if we pull out now—" He didn't need to finish the thought. Abandoning the colony would lead to massive losses and potentially destroy humanity's credibility in the galactic community. Before they could decide on a course of action, alarms blared across the ship. The Concordat had launched a new offensive, deploying massive vessels carrying amplified versions of the adaptability suppression technology. Patrick watched in horror as vast dead zones appeared across the battlefield, rendering human forces vulnerable. The colonial defenses, which had held so valiantly, began to crumble under the assault. His communicator chirped with an incoming transmission from Dr. Lyra. Her voice was breathless with excitement and worry. "I've done it. I've developed a device that can temporarily restore human adaptability within the affected areas. But Patrick, it's unstable. Using it could be incredibly dangerous." As Patrick processed this information, long-range sensors lit up with new contacts. The massive Concordat fleet they had detected earlier was now visible, a vast armada that dwarfed their current opposition. Time seemed to slow as Patrick considered their options. Stay and defend the colony using Lyra's risky prototype, or withdraw to strike at the heart of the Concordat's operations. The fate of not just the colony, but potentially the entire human race, hung on this decision. He looked out at the battle raging around them, then back at the tactical display showing the approaching Concordat armada. Whatever choice he made would shape the course of the war and potentially the future of humanity in the galactic community. With a deep breath, Patrick turned to Captain Walker, ready to voice his recommendation. "Recommendation. We stay and fight," he said firmly, meeting Captain Walker's gaze. "This colony represents more than just a tactical position. It's a symbol of humanity's place in the galactic community. If we abandon it now, we lose far more than a single battle." Walker nodded, a grim smile on her face. "Agreed. What's your plan?" Patrick tapped his communicator. "Dr. Lyra, we need that prototype of yours. How quickly can you get it to us?" "It's ready for deployment." Lyra's voice crackled through the speaker. "But Patrick, I must stress again how unstable it is. The effects on our troops could be unpredictable." "Understood," Patrick replied. "But right now, it's our best shot. Transmit the specifications to our engineering team. We'll begin mass production immediately." As the Defiance crew scrambled to prepare the new devices, Patrick coordinated with Earth Command. "We need a covert team to strike at the Concordat's hidden shipyard," he explained. "If we can take out that super weapon, we might just turn the tide of this war." Admiral Chen's hologram flickered on the bridge. "Agreed. I'm dispatching Commander Zextara and a hand-picked team for the operation. They'll depart within the hour." Patrick turned back to the tactical display, his mind racing. The massive Concordat fleet was drawing closer, its formation a menacing wall of steel and energy weapons. He studied the enemy's approach, an idea forming in his mind. "Captain," he said, "I think I have a way to buy us some time. Those chameleon drones, they can mimic energy signatures, right?" Walker's eyes widened as she grasped his plan. "You want to create a phantom fleet?" Patrick nodded. "Exactly. If we can make the Concordat think we have reinforcements, it might cause them to hesitate." As the crew implemented his strategy, Patrick watched the space around the colony transform. The swarm of chameleon drones shifted, their energy signatures morphing to mimic Earth's most powerful warships. To any long-range sensors, it would appear as if a massive defensive fleet had materialized out of nowhere. The effect was immediate. The approaching Concordat fleet slowed, its formation becoming more cautious as they reassessed the situation. Patrick allowed himself a small smile. They had bought precious time, but he knew it wouldn't last forever. His communicator chirped. It was Dr. Lyra again, her voice filled with excitement. "Patrick, we've had a breakthrough. We found a way to temporarily transfer human adaptability to our alien allies. It's risky, but it could give us the edge we need." Patrick's mind raced with the possibilities. "Do it," he said. "We need every advantage we can get." Within minutes, volunteer alien forces were receiving the enhancement. Patrick watched in awe as their movements became more fluid, their reactions quicker. The enhanced Allied ships launched a fierce counteroffensive against the Concordat's capital ships, exploiting weaknesses in their defenses with uncanny speed. The space above the colony erupted into a frenzied battle. Energy weapons crisscrossed the void, and explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. Both sides suffered heavy losses, but slowly, inexorably, the tide began to turn in favor of the defenders. Patrick knew they couldn't rely solely on the space battle. "Captain," he said, turning to Walker, "I need to lead a team to the surface. If we can capture the Concordate's command center, we might be able to end this fight before that fleet reaches us." Walker hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Go. We'll provide cover from up here." Patrick assembled a strike team and boarded a shuttle. As they descended through the planet's atmosphere, he briefed his team on the plan. The shuttle touched down amidst the chaos of ground combat, and Patrick led his team into the fray. They fought their way through waves of Concordate forces, their restored adaptability allowing them to quickly overcome the alien weaponry. Patrick's enhanced senses were on overdrive, processing the battlefield at an astonishing rate. He led his team through the colony's winding streets, always pushing forward toward their objective. Finally, they reached the Concordate's command center. It was a fortress of alien design, its defenses formidable. But Patrick and his team had come too far to be stopped now. They launched a coordinated assault, using their enhanced abilities to outmaneuver the enemy at every turn. With a final push, they breached the command center's main chamber. Patrick rushed to the central console, his fingers flying over the alien controls. He accessed the Concordate's communication networks, broadcasting a message to all forces in the sector. "Attention all ships," he began, his voice carried across the battlefield. "This is Lieutenant Patrick Simpson of the Earth Alliance. We have captured the Purity Concordate's command center and gained access to their intelligence networks. We now have irrefutable proof of their true motives and the destruction of their superweapon." As he spoke, Patrick transmitted the data they had uncovered. He watched on the monitors as the information spread through the fleet, causing visible disarray in the Concordate's ranks. Several enemy ships broke formation, signaling their surrender. Others, driven by desperation, launched kamikaze attacks against the colony's defenses. Patrick coordinated with the Allied fleet, organizing a final push to repel the remaining Concordate forces. The skies above the colony lit up with an awesome display of firepower as capital ships clashed and fighter squadrons engaged in intricate dogfights. On the ground, Patrick led the colonial defenders in, mopping up the last pockets of Concordate resistance. They employed guerrilla tactics, using their enhanced abilities to outmaneuver the enemy and secure key strategic points across the colony. As the battle reached its crescendo, long-range sensors lit up with new contacts. Patrick's heart sank, fearing Concordate reinforcements. But as the data streamed in, his eyes widened in disbelief. "Captain," he called over the comm, "you're not going to believe this. We've got a massive fleet approaching, but it's not Concordate. It's a combined force from multiple galactic civilizations. They're here to help us." The arrival of these reinforcements was the final blow to the Concordate's hopes of victory. The remaining enemy ships, now hopelessly outnumbered, began to retreat or surrender en masse. A cheer went up from the Allied forces as the realization of their victory began to sink in. Patrick allowed himself a moment of relief, but it was short-lived. His communicator chirped with an urgent message from Earth. Admiral Chen's hologram appeared, his expression grave. "Lieutenant Simpson, I'm afraid this fight isn't over yet. We've just received intelligence that a splinter group of the Concordate has broken away. They possess another superweapon, and they're en route to the Sol system. Their target is Earth itself." The weight of this news hit Patrick like a physical blow. They had won this battle, but the war was far from finished. He looked out over the battered but victorious Allied fleet, knowing he would have to ask them for one more Herculean effort. "Understood, Admiral," Patrick replied, his mind already formulating a plan. "We'll gather every ship we can and make for Earth immediately. The Concordate won't take our homeworld without a fight." As he began coordinating with the Allied commanders, Patrick couldn't shake the feeling that this next battle would be their most desperate yet. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire human race, hung in the balance. With steadfast perseverance, he set about preparing for the final confrontation with the Purity Concordate. Patrick's mind raced as he processed Admiral Chen's dire news. The Concordate splinter group, armed with another superweapon, was en route to Earth. There was no time to savor their victory here. "Captain Walker," he called over the comm, "we need to mobilize every ship we've got. Set a course for Earth, maximum speed." Walker's voice crackled back, tense but determined. "Already on it, Lieutenant. We're prepping for immediate departure." Patrick turned to the assembled alien commanders, their faces a mix of exhaustion and concern. "I know we've asked much of you already," he began, "but Earth needs your help. Will you stand with us one more time?" There was a moment of silence, then a chorus of affirmatives. The Dronin commander, his carapace still scorched from battle, stepped forward. "Humanity has proven itself a worthy ally. We fight with you." Within minutes, a coalition fleet was assembled. The UES Defiant took point, its massive engines glowing with impossibly strong energy. As they prepared to jump to faster-than-light travel, Patrick received an urgent message from Dr. Lyra. "Patrick, I've been working on something," she said, her hologram flickering with excitement. "I think I can boost our propulsion systems using principles from our adaptability research. It's risky, but it could give us the edge we need to catch up with the Concordate." "Do it," Patrick replied without hesitation. "We'll need every advantage we can get." As Lyra's modifications were implemented across the fleet, Patrick felt the Defiant shudder beneath his feet. The stars outside stretched into lines, then vanished altogether as they plunged into the swirling vortex of hyperspace. The journey seemed to last both an eternity and no time at all. Patrick used every second to strategize, poring over tactical displays and conferring with Earth's Defense Command. As they neared the solar system, a transmission came through from an unexpected source. "Lieutenant Simpson," came the gravelly voice of Commander Zextara, the Dronin warrior who had been sent to infiltrate the Concordate's shipyard. "We've analyzed the enemy intelligence. The superweapon has a critical weakness, but exploiting it will require a direct, close-range assault." Patrick's heart sank as he realized the implications. "A suicide mission," he murmured. "Perhaps," Zextara replied, "but it may be our only chance." As the fleet dropped out of hyperspace on the outskirts of the solar system, Patrick's breath caught in his throat. The Concordate ships were already in position, their superweapon a dark, ominous shape against the backdrop of Earth. "All ships battle positions," Patrick ordered, his voice steady despite the fear gripping his heart. "Earth Defense Command, status report." "Our shields are holding for now," came the response. "We've implemented the adaptability-enhancing technology across our defense grid. We'll give them hell, but we can't hold out forever." Patrick watched as Earth's surface blazed with the light of energy shields deflecting enemy fire. Swarms of chameleon drones harassed the attacking ships, their signature mimicking technology sowing confusion among the Concordate forces. "Here's the plan," Patrick announced to the fleet. "The main force will engage the enemy head-on, draw their fire, keep them occupied. I'll lead a small strike team to take out that superweapon." "Lieutenant," Captain Walker interjected, "that's too risky. We need you coordinating the fleet." Patrick shook his head. "This is our only shot, Captain. I trust you to lead the main assault. We'll use the experimental cloaking device to get close." As the bulk of the Allied fleet surged forward to meet the Concordate forces, Patrick assembled his strike team. Humans stood shoulder to shoulder with alien allies, united in their desperate mission. Their stealth ship slipped away from the Defiant, its cloaking device rendering it nearly invisible against the starry backdrop. As they approached the massive superweapon, Patrick felt a bead of sweat trickle down his spine. "All right, team," he said, his voice low. "We've got one shot at this. Let's make it count." They docked with the superweapon, the cloaking device hiding their approach from the Concordate's sensors. As they breached the hull, alarms blared throughout the structure. Patrick led the charge, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to take down Concordate defenders with ruthless efficiency. "Split up," he ordered as they reached a junction. "Plant the explosives at the designated points. I'm heading for the control center." As his team dispersed, Patrick fought his way deeper into the heart of the superweapon. The corridors were a maze of alien technology, but he pressed on, driven by the knowledge that Earth's fate hung in the balance. Finally, he reached the control center. The doors slid open, revealing a cavernous room dominated by a central platform. And there, surrounded by holographic displays, stood the Concordate's leader. The alien turned, its cybernetic implants glinting in the harsh light. "So," it said, its voice a grating metallic rasp, "the adaptable human comes to face me at last." Patrick raised his weapon, but the alien moved with shocking speed. In an instant, it had closed the distance between them, knocking the gun from Patrick's hands. They grappled, Patrick's enhanced reflexes barely keeping pace with the alien's cybernetic strength. As they fought, Patrick caught glimpses of the battle raging outside. The Allied fleet was holding its own, but the outcome was far from certain. Earth's defenses still blazed, but for how long? The alien leader landed a crushing blow, sending Patrick sprawling across the platform. As he struggled to his feet, he saw the Concordate leader move towards a central console. "Your adaptability is impressive," the alien sneered, "but it won't save your world. With the press of a button, I can obliterate your entire species." Patrick tensed, ready to launch himself at the alien, but before he could move, a blinding light filled the control room. Every display screen flickered, then changed, showing the same image. Dr. Lyra, her face etched with persistence. "Patrick," her voice rang out, "I've done it. We're broadcasting the adaptability trait across the entire system. Every Allied ship, every defense platform, they're all being enhanced. Use it." The effect was immediate. Patrick felt a surge of energy course through him, his senses sharpening even further. He launched himself at the Concordate leader, moving faster than he ever had before. The alien's cybernetic enhancements were formidable, but they couldn't match the rapidly evolving tactics Patrick employed. Each blow, each counter, was perfectly adapted to the alien's fighting style. As they fought, Patrick caught glimpses of the battle outside. Allied ships were outmaneuvering the Concordate vessels with impossible agility. Earth's defenses had redoubled, energy weapons firing with uncanny accuracy. With a final decisive move, Patrick knocked the Concordate leader to the ground. He stood over the alien, his chest heaving with exertion. "It's over," Patrick said, his voice firm. "Your forces are defeated. Surrender and face justice for your actions." The alien's eyes darted to a nearby console. With a snarl of defiance, it lunged, slamming its hand down on a glowing panel. Alarms blared throughout the superweapon. "Self-destruct sequence initiated," an emotionless voice announced. "Detonation in 60 seconds." Patrick's mind raced. He shoved the alien aside, his fingers flying over the alien controls. Layers of security protocols stood between him and aborting the self-destruct, but his enhanced mind tore through them with terrifying speed. 10 seconds to detonation, the countdown continued. Patrick's fingers danced across the console, sweat beading on his brow. With a final desperate command, he bypassed the last firewall. "Self-destruct sequence aborted," the computer announced. Patrick sagged against the console, relief washing over him. He quickly transmitted the weapon's deactivation codes to the Allied fleet, ensuring it could never be used again. As the news spread, the remaining Concordate ships began to power down their weapons. Surrender signals flooded the communication channels. The Sol system erupted in celebration as the realization of victory spread. Patrick looked out at the star field, Earth shining like a blue jewel among the chaos of battle. They had won against adversity, but as he watched the Allied fleet begin to regroup, he knew that this victory was just the beginning. A new chapter in galactic history was about to unfold, and humanity would be at its center.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.